think we're also muted while this is happening automatically.
Okay.
We'll find out in our own magical way.
I'll check the live stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Good. The streaming things are on. Okay, it'll start in just a moment. And then open up my events. So I saw like a completely AI movie that
Oh, you did?
made. Yeah. He's like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen AI make or whatever. And it's like this weird story about a guy who's living in a trailer park and he finds a piece of toast tapping on his window and it belonged to his father and it was not in a homoerotic way. It just wanted to be buttered. Stuff. It's like, the story was written by AI. It created images and tied it all together. Like, and it's just so absurd. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of artifacting.
That's what a lot of the good ones are. Like, they just roll with the absurdity of visuals. Have you seen Runway?
Yes.
The tool Runway?
Yeah.
I'm finding that to be probably the best one these days.
Yeah, they're way ahead of everybody in that regard.
Yeah.
My big thing right now is the advancements in robotics that have just happened. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Because now they're just going, oh, AI can fix all the robot issues. Bing, there they go. You know, and they are. It's like, they're jumping way ahead. The Chinese have a $16,000 humanoid robot that they're selling now, which is just a knockoff of everybody else's and just steals the update from everybody else's. Which is totally predictable.
Did you see the silly strawberry thing going around?
Yeah, it's the new version of strawberry AI that's coming out. I'll see if I can find it.
No, it's like a meme about AI not being able to spell strawberry.
Oh, because the new OpenAI's new level is called strawberry.
Yeah, that's another thing that's going on. But I'm speaking specifically to this, like,
it's a meme.
People kind of coming down on, oh, it's so stupid it can't even spell strawberry. When the question is like, it makes sense why it answers it.
Cool. All right, I'll jump in here and transfer over to us in just a second. I'm just going to jump in and go for both of us, just so you know. Heads up. So here we go. And here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, look at that.
Hello.
I'm in LA. I have internet, kind of.
Cool.
I have green screen, kind of.
Cool.
I can't speak to how choppy it will be at any given point, but we are up and running. And I will say, while other updates were missed by the housemates in LA, someone vacuumed in the studio.
Oh.
So that in and of itself is a huge step forward. I feel like there was probably a breakthrough in therapy or someone's ketamine kicked in. I don't know what they do while I'm not here to try and, fix all the broken internal workings, but apparently something worked. So welcome, everybody. Hit that like. This is Housemarque's Mornings Megaworldwide. It is Friday, and this is Rob Glenn. And we on Friday, we talk every Friday about AI. This is Friday AI, and I started doing this and then brought you in on it because in many ways, the same way I feel like I was a little ahead of the curve on Ukraine, in that the importance of it and the long-term importance of it and getting people to understand the details is crucial, to your life going forward. And, the irony of there are a bunch of now like little AI channels and AI businesses and all kinds of stuff popping up all over YouTube and other places, like teach you how to make 7 figures in AI and all this kind of stuff, largely by BSing your way through stuff, because I got to be honest, a lot of these folks have no idea what they're doing. They just know that the person they're talking to knows even less about it than they do. Right?
Very much true.
They know they're talking to a business recruiter or somebody who knows like less about AI than they do and is scared of it. So they're like, don't worry about it, I got this covered. So they kind of like Fonzie their way through it, if that makes sense. I like that is increasing in speed, which means the ignorance level is spiking. So now let's deal with a couple of because I have you here and because we share politics as well. Let's jump right in, though, if we may, about did you see Kamala Harris's interview last night? Thoughts?
Yes, and I have
feelings?
a lot of thoughts about all the things around the interview, not so much the interview. But the interview itself, I constantly am shocked at how low grade a CNN, a network like CNN is. Like, that was terribly lit and terribly set up. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was.
And they're like the professionals.
They're in a diner, right? Like I spent all this time trying to straggling just to get visual where I'm, and stuff, so that at least there's some flow to it. It doesn't have to be great. I can be max headroom as long as you can hear it and you know what I'm talking about. We're okay. Yeah. But this is a nearly $1 billion industry. A company rather, and probably multi-billion, actually, probably like 2.3 if you sold the whole thing kit and caboodle, maybe. But as far as the reach and international, it's huge. It's just ginormous, and the availability of tech that they have, no matter where they are, is absurdly large. And do you think there's a little bit of like tech laziness? Like they think things are getting so good. As far as internet and the available bandwidth everywhere, they just assume that America's got great internet compared to wherever. We'll just set up when we get there. We could do the whole thing with a laptop. That you think they fall into that trap? Because I find myself doing it sometimes. But I know better.
I mean, I look at it from kind of multiple directions. One, I think it is a level of, I don't know if laziness is the right word, because I actually think it's like cost savings. They're just doing it on lower budgets now, and they're doing it quicker. So that might be one aspect of it. But I look at it from the other side, to just like let everybody realize that independent media, basically, when you look at like a Morning Joe, it's basically a Zoom call.
Oh my God. And they do it from their house.
Network media. Don't be scared of network media.
No.
It's just, they're basically the same as independent media with a huge budget. So So anyway, that's my first takeaway from it. My other takeaway, I mean, we know Kamala's going to do great.
Yeah.
She was well prepared. She sounded great. And the way that she's being nitpicked or she's being approached, when Trump can sit there and blather and never answer anything, and they're like, well, I'm not so sure about that answer, and she needs to prove herself. Like, get out of here. That's just stupid. So that there was that, and then and then just the overall, she proved herself is just, it's ridiculous. Like, that the vice president needs to somehow sit down and somehow prove herself, when the opposite of the other party just can't even put two words together.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of a person of color has to fly when everybody else can just walk. There's a whole element of a woman has to double show what she's capable of, and and I will say that expectation on the Democratic side of the aisle is completely gone. It never really existed, at least since the mid-'80s. There aren't really Democrats running around, going, I like it, but a woman president. Like 2016, there were progressives and people like that thought they could piss away their vote and it wouldn't count, and so they gave away the Electoral College. And some of them did it for sexist reasons, no question. That exists. But in mass, as far as a party idea, that's not a measurable thing. On the Republican side, it is devastatingly real. And that's why Nikki Haley and Sarah Palin were doomed from the very start. And there will not be, unless this becomes the party of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, there will not be a Republican Party that can stomach a female president on their side of the aisle, even with their love of Margaret Thatcher and their belief that queens and potentates can be murderous and do the bad thing when it's necessary. Doesn't matter. They're just not able. They won't allow it, right? And we know this. Mm-hmm. Democrats don't have that problem. So there's this watery area of independence that they're testing the waters. Is that still a thing? And increasingly it isn't. Not in real voting independence, because a lot of the voting independents are former Republicans who are just too embarrassed and just are, either they voted for Bush and Trump or just Bush, and after the Iraq War, they're like, I'm an independent. I'm not with any party. Like, you see that defense all the time. You're like, you vote Republican every time, but you call yourself an independent. Like, there's that group.
Yeah.
That Trump is the step too far, so therefore they very well may vote for Harris just to broom him. And that is going to be one of the biggest sales pitches I think we're going to see the closer we get to the election, to the actual group, people who go in there and flip a switch. The big sales pitch from Harris is going to go, if you're a real Republican and you want any future for your party, you have to shame Trump into the darkness. You have to vote for Harris and Walz and say, that's how bad it was. That's how bad he was. And we got to start from scratch, and I never want to hear his name again. Because if you give him an inch, he will say it was stolen. He will say that the Republican Party really still loves me. If he walks away with any more than 40% of the vote, much less 40% of the Republican electorate, MAGA still owns the GOP. But if those people just kind of swamp him and drive him out of office, and everybody goes, Jesus, I never want to hear that dude's name again, and anybody who's wearing a MAGA hat gets booed by their own people, that's the only way they're going to salvage this. And that's a sales pitch the Harris campaign can use.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Part
of me, steady, I don't know how you feel about the debates coming up. I think that, they've been running lights out. Like, they've been really, really, everything's been planned well. She's been on message. It's awesome. So, who are we to say what she should or shouldn't do? But in the debate, I feel like there's a moment where she could actually almost, is it called breaking the fourth plane? What's the, when you speak directly to the audience, you're in
breaking the fourth wall. Yeah.
Breaking the fourth wall. I feel like there's a moment where she could actually maybe break the fourth wall, the other walls being Trump on one side and the media and her in between that.
Right. Pull a Ferris Bueller. Right. Just turn to the camera.
Look in the camera and hey, everybody, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. Let me talk directly to you, because I can't even answer any of this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Right.
There's a
happen
moment
in the
that she might be able to have.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I think that they somehow should goad him into speaking over her and doing all that stuff. And then lastly, I think she should not do the I'm speaking. She should change that a little bit to throw him off. Mm-hmm. And somehow those three things would be, a decent debate performance.
Right. That's a great idea.
There's no going back.
You know what she could do is she'd go, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd like to hear more from Trump on what he was saying.
Yes,
because
I was thinking this. She should ask the question that the media should back to him.
Anybody who was just listening understood what he was saying. So maybe he needs another minute to explain what that was, because to me and to everyone watching, it was gibberish. Please say that again in terms that humans can understand. You know what I mean? Shaming him into keep talking. You want to talk? You want to push yourself out there? You want to be in front line? fine. Show everybody what you're going to do, buddy. And then mock him for it. He will fall apart. He can't, he'll get
turn towards the guy, looking straight as he's talking, look at him on the screen and laugh at him.
Right.
Like, it's that, I mean, this whole thing is just so crazy to me how, going back to the original thing about the CNN thing, it's almost like the lack of quality on TV is actually like level setting with people, because the quality that people are producing on their own phones, like that's their world. They're like in this world and they see themselves through their own camera, not in the mirror. And that's different, right? AI kind of enhances things like that too. But what I'm getting at is like that interview to me felt like it could have happened with any influencer. And I think that humanizes her in a way that is extremely powerful.
Right.
So it looks kind of like CNN kind of blew it, but I think them coming down and people coming up to meet in the middle is what actually is her superpower.
Yeah. I also think that because she is the sitting vice president and because JD Vance is running to be vice president, there is an accidental parallel that is created comparing the two of them, which is not the gig. It should be Walz against JD Vance, but JD Vance seems to be the one running against her. And Trump is just running against the idea that anybody else should be president, right?
He's running against reality.
Yeah, exactly. He's running against this kind of fabricated storyline in his freaking head, which is fascinating. But the response to JD Vance's CNN interview was just, he was just pilloried. It was just brutal because he heard one of the questions he didn't like. He pretended he couldn't hear it because it was staticky. The CNN interviewer going, apparently the line was too staticky for him to hear my deep, bassy voice. Like, it was so, like, dude, you're not even lying right. You say cutting out, because if you say static, that means you can still hear me, and there's no way my voice is lost in static. Like, that guy is enough of a pro, and he's been in interviews that have shit the bed enough that he's like, yeah, you couldn't hear my
in a digital
you couldn't
world,
hear my
really
voice through the Oh God, it's so good. By the way, hit the like, everybody. This is Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc. Now we're going to talk about AI stuff, and I like my big thing right now is robotics. So one of the areas you and I have talked about is the sort of leap forward part of like AI is an accelerator, because now that people can't code but might have great ideas can now code. Because you ask it to do the coding for you. You don't have to hire a team of people. So people with genuine, like, forward-thinking ideas, both good and bad, which is the scary part. That's the part, like, I wonder if you could build a super bacteria that only kills Irish people, right? That kind of thought is concerning, right, with AI. And then that's the part where the guy finds out that he's actually half Irish, and then and he didn't make enough of it. So anyways, the point being is that these accelerators make a potential for solving a bunch of the problems that would have taken ages of material testing and retesting and retesting and retesting, especially when it comes to the movement of robotics so they can stand up and not fall over. Think of all the wired up, big rigged Boston Dynamics, things that are, just trying to stand and flopping all over the place and then keeling over, and it's kind of hilarious and a little sad and a little you have this kind of grandpa moment, right? When it falls over. But they were able, NVIDIA has this thing called Eureka, where they can train robots in a virtual environment with real physics. And so it can practice all this stuff with the materials it has. And then you go, if you make the robot out of these materials and it's this weight, and it's this, you use the right cables on it, on its, arms and fingers, it can walk. It can dance now. It can jump. It can't dance. They can't dance. It can imitate dancing, but you know what I mean. And it can move fluidly, right? That part went from like astronaut, like the early Sony robots of looking like an astronaut who's got diarrhea trying to walk across the room without shitting his pants, because that's the way they always look. They always have that kind of like, uh-oh. And then to now the kind of like they're all coordination, doing these little, dance reviews together, to finger movements. So I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about. But the leaps forward on like humanoid robots has gone so fast that none of the articles can keep up. Remember the woman robot, which is I think it's called Amika, the woman, the face. That was the one that it looks like her face is made out of gray clay. That like it does all the facial recognition stuff, and so it looks like it's really emoting. That was the last big eureka for most people, where you saw that and you're like, oh shit, that looks, she's past the uncanny valley. There's it's not quite creepy. If you put makeup on it, it would start getting odd, but it somehow at grayscale it's acceptable. Doesn't weird you out. So I'm trying to find this one robot that they just put out. That's, I want to say the Chinese are copying a robot that the Figure One, essentially. They're just stealing everything that Figure One does and doing it quicker and cheaper. They're doing a quick and dirty version of it, and allowing you to plug in access to ChatGPT. And again, these things aren't there yet, but they're going to get there so fast.
So a couple things. By the way, Figure One's videos are awesome.
Yes, they are. We looked at one of them,
really,
one
really
of the early
good.
ones. They just came out with, we did Figure 2, right? I showed Figure 2 a couple weeks ago, or a week ago. 2 weeks ago. It's extraordinary. And it's
go
ahead.
But what I'd maybe like to try to talk through is the why. Like, so it's happening.
Yes.
It's happening at this faster speed, and it's easy to fall into this like black box is doing all the thinking and this and that. But I think the why is more specific to what I maybe would call like cross. What would be the word? Like cross-functional teams tend to be groups of people that do completely different things. They're experts in, let's say, coding, or they're experts in electromechanical interactions. There's got to be an expert on literally like the motor and the battery. And so a robot is, in the case of like a Figure One as an example, it's all of these things coming together that make it work, and they have to come together, work together. And so AI is accelerating that collaboration.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to go find like the world's greatest expert in actuating a motor, or the world's greatest expert in, so maybe you got all these engineers who are really good at the mechanical side, but then you want it to move naturally. Well, that's a completely different talent of articulating an object so that it looks human, right? So you might have to go find like an animator, somebody in VFX to help you, or you could start to apply the outputs of an AI model to the mechanics. So it's making these teams smaller and faster, because they don't have to go find the person. They can just try stuff very quickly and iterate on those things much quicker without having to go out and finding experts. That's maybe the way that I would describe the basics of why it's accelerating.
And that expert you're working with, let's say if you had to find that person who is perfect at working with joints and moving stuff, that person would have a hard time keeping up with how fast the other advances were happening around them. They might be cutting edge when they get on the flight from wherever you're flying them from, and by the time they land, there's a leap forward. because of how fast the Eureka system's working, or because somebody goes, AI, I need something better than a ball joint for wrists and stuff that gives me more actuation and is less prone to breaking down. And it gives you 16 of them, runs options on, and okay, I like those 4 because they look okay and they require, the least amount of materials. Run every possible test on those things so that what would they be like in 3,000 years if you were using the same joint in something? Which one will last 3,000 years? And you go, these 2 will. Okay, which one's the, materials are available now? This one. There you go. So then you start making it. And by the time that person's plane lands, you've already made this kind of quantum leap. So I'll show you real quick. Let me see if I can bring this up.
Real quick though, can I say one thing? So Bruce Baker mentioned, or made a comment. Isn't that getting coders and animators who are then putting their trades out of business? So when I describe what I just described, actually the AI is allowing for, let's say, like a mid-level coder to produce what that specialty person might produce.
Right.
So instead of having to go out and find like the highest experts in, all these different things, these different fields, you can have a team that may be like, good at, like mid-level good at all these things and understanding well enough. And when empowered with an AI, AI tool, it augments their ability to produce these options. So you're not necessarily putting these individuals out of business or out of a job. Instead, what you do is you're making them more productive.
Right. And this.
Go ahead.
So this is the $16,000 humanoid robot that they're talking about, the Unitree, which is, there's so many ads on this thing. This guy right here. So it is. They are basically just copying everything that anybody makes, and they're just attaching it to the thing, and then they hook it up to. You can hook it up in the United States and in the West. You can hook it up to OpenAI. If you own this thing in China, you're not allowed. So it's only at probably 20% effectiveness inside China. That's the irony. They're building their own AI that will allow it to do certain things, but it's curious. But it is trained by someone recreating effort. So that it just goes through stuff. So if you want to learn how to make eggs for you, because it's got a skillet in its hand, you make eggs wearing a VR helmet and the hand controllers, and then it will repeat that thing. It's not quite up to the AI because they won't allow it to be. But that's not really important. The important thing is what we're talking about is like the mechanical actuators and its elbows and its arms and its head and its sensors and stuff. All that is now there. Now it's a matter of software almost everywhere. That's the incredible part. And the software has never been easier because of AI. That is also like there's this leapfrogging effect where they're jumping one over the other into the next thing. So there was here it is. This article I thought was like, you want to talk about forward thinking. 5 ways you might pay for your AI humanoid robot in retirement. So let's think of like, okay, what are my medical needs going to be, or what is it going to cost for a nurse, or any of those kind of things will now be like how you finance a car. Because if Unitree's making a $16,000 robot like this, and it can mass produce itself, let's say that's for sure, and then it's a matter of software, these things aren't going to be that expensive. Robots are, like this, it'll be about chip and availability of stuff, or like onboarding it will be a big thing. Like we've talked about on, like having on your phone, having AI on your phone or AI local to your computer so that there's privacy, so that it's not uploaded to some giant server and they can just keep track of you, how you have, like those psychiatry AI bots have taken off in some areas, and then a bunch of other people don't go anywhere near them because the idea that some company now has all of your, deepest thoughts. There's no record keeping rules about any of it, that you just kind of bare your soul. Like, it's better to join Scientology. So this being localized, for example, having the AI on board in the actual robot was an impossibility 2 years ago. Oh my God, it's like the computers of the 1960s, right? Rows and rows of banks of tape machines in theory. Now you can. Like, Apple has an AI level chip on the phone, This is just the second, maybe the first gen of it, second gen of it. The M chip in there is available. The Copilot chip that Microsoft is working on. That's not a lot. We're talking about very little payload for the actual computation skills that it will need. And it will be adaptable based on that. So it can still learn. It's still got room to grow on that same thing. Like this is going to happen a lot faster than people realize, I think.
Yeah, I think the main hurdle is just going to be people being able to imagine what it's going to do for them.
Comfort, right?
So
fitting it in.
Yeah, initially you tend to buy things to serve yourself, to serve a function for you, right? So a lot of marketing, some marketing is just entirely based on emotions, but other marketing is more based on like, you have this problem, you want to fix it. You have this task, you want help making it easier, right?
Right.
So initially, the struggle is going to be how to connect like this $16,000 purchase to $16,000 worth of value in your home. Like, what is it replacing that you're currently spending money on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So illustrating those tasks, illustrating like the benefit of it is going to be really the thing that's going to be the start of it.
Yeah.
But what I think is the most unknown is when people get it in their hands, what are they going to do with it? And that's the fascinating part, because we can't conceive of what people will start using them for. We can guess, but it's going to be weird.
Well, here's the thing.
It's going to be different than we think, and sometimes a little weird.
So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a quantum leap in robotics and AI that makes it, you know how they say like true science is indistinguishable from sorcery, like the same thing will be true of robotics in our environment. For a while, it's going to be clunky and weird, kind of like you and I in 3D printing. There's this, we're starting to get to the point where 3D printing is a little bit cleaner. Like they now have your 3D printer has that thing where it'll expel a little bit of the plastic and then wipe it off, which is something you used to have to do with a physical item, usually a paint or like a spackle thing that you would get. You'd buy an extra tool at the hardware store just to take that off so it would be a clean print. Now that's automatic. As these things start jumping ahead to the, what do you want it to do? I want it to do this. Okay, it can do this and this, and this. So you go, the idea would be, right now, if you wanted a robot like this, you'd have to bring in whoever's selling it to you. You'd have to explain to them what kind of robot they want. They'd show you a brochure of, okay, you've got stairs in your house. You don't have stairs in your house. You need a dog-shaped one or a human-shaped one, but it's going to have to walk up and down. Or we can set up a dumbwaiter for it so it can move from floor to floor, which will be another possibility if people don't want a walking one that they can outrun by going floor to floor with that so they can get away with it if that makes them nervous, whatever. There'll be a myriad of those kind of things. Because the one thing about a Roomba,
I want to see them like throw things back and forth to each other.
Yes. The one thing about a Roomba is it can't chase you up a flight of stairs. So I think that's why it's been so popular.
There you go.
But so right now, that as it stands, if you wanted one of these, if you were super rich and you're like, I want a robot that cleans my room or whatever, you could actually do that. You could bring in a team. You could bring in a startup level group of people, 8 or 10 techs, the actual robot itself. They'll set up a charging station. It will more than likely stay in the same room. But you could go, its job is to scan this room, and if anything in this room is out of place, when at the end of the day, it wakes up, comes over, puts everything back where it goes. So it basically, like the kids' blocks and their clothes and all that kind of stuff. Once everybody's gone to bed and that sensor goes off and we're all asleep, it does what it goes back to cleaning the floor. Then it goes away, right? Mm-hmm. That's totally possible, but it's a huge pain in the ass for most people because you'd sit there and go, well, I want it to do this, but I don't want it to do this. And I'm not sure if I want it to do this, and maybe it should do this, and I don't even know what I do during my day. I just do what I do, and I don't know how it could help me, and I'm really not comfortable with it picking my underwear up, like those kind of things, right? There's gonna, yeah, right. There's gonna be this, I'd rather it, but
it's not gonna judge.
Right. Well, that's the first conversation. But there will be a point, and again, like I said, much quicker than we think, where it can show up. Like your robot could show up in a box. You will open the box. It will be, like 5 feet tall humanoid robot. You plug it in, update it like a phone. It comes up, scans the room, and goes, wow, it looks like you run a pretty clean place here. I'd love to help. So I'm not going to intrude on anything, but let me know if you'd like any help with any particular thing, and I'll let you know if there's anything I think I can help with. And if I'm bugging you, just let me know, and I'll stand here until that happens. And you go, well, actually, there's dishes in the dishwasher. Can you put those away? And it will go, sure. Do you want to show me where the cabinets are? It doesn't need you to show you where the cabinets are. It can spot them and do whatever it does. But you could go, yeah, I put the dishes in here. The same thing you would do with like a new housekeeper or a whatever. And we're this close to middle class people having a robot butler in slash housekeeper, like rich people used to have, lords and ladies, kings and potentates. That's what that is. And then you go, okay, with that comes freed up time socially, emotionally. What are you doing when you're not doing that? If you still want to do it, you can do it. You can go, stand down, I got it, I'm cooking dinner tonight. But it'll go, you want me to do the dishes while you guys are eating? Yeah, if you can do it quietly. And it will literally wash the dish super quietly. Like, that's where we're headed. That's where and it's not, when I was a kid, that was 100 years away. Right?
It felt like it, but now, it feels like it could be tomorrow.
Or a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we are already, the tech is growing at an exponential rate, so that how like in Star Wars when you look at their kind of like 8-bit view of the trench or them flying around and all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of quaint and adorable because of that, right? We're about to do that with C-3PO and R2-D2 essentially. Like even BB-8 is a huge advance forward in the recognition of what's possible, right? As far as it doesn't need legs at all. It shouldn't. Hold on, I realized we don't have like your nameplate wasn't there, so I gotta fix that.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I think we can look at like the trajectory of a couple of other technologies. Like TVs, just as a very basic analogy or
flat screens
parallel. Yeah. I mean, they started out as these like magical things that only a few people had. And now, you can go to Walmart and buy a 60-inch TV for $300 or I'm making up the price, but it's probably not that far off. When we started with phones, phones came out as a direct replacement to the landline. And they really, all they did was they made calls. And they slowly evolved, not slowly actually, like very quickly evolved, relative to time, into a full-on computer that we have now, right? That you can access anything you want. That's how I see robotics sort of entering our lives. Is it's going to be a direct one-to-one. I want it to do A, B, and C, and then as it's there doing that, you're going to, my robot is going to smoke weed for you. I mean, that's waste of weed.
Waste of perfectly good weed, I guess.
So, what I'm trying to say is if you like think about it in that way, like it was very easy for people to conceive of, at the beginning, I want a phone so I can call home before I, while I'm on the road or something like that. And you couldn't even think about, what social media would possibly ever be. Like that, the idea of a camera on there wasn't even considered for quite a while. The idea of it being as good as a high-end film camera, that was inconceivable. I mean, so many things that we currently hold in our hand in an item that costs $1,000. And what did that take? 20 years?
Yeah,
probably 15 years, something like that, to like go from the old Nokia phone that you were using the number pad to type to now a fully functional computer.
Right.
And robotics will be the same thing. I mean,
but
yeah,
faster, because
yeah.
there are a couple of things. One is, unlike the cell phone, I think we knew what we wanted from robotics a lot quicker. Because if you think about what,
Think so?
like that, yeah, because obviously nobody needs to be a mine worker, right? Like that, even as humans, they
Oh,
were
you're
always,
talking about like industrial
yeah,
robots.
well, even just that's what I'm saying is like the use of the actual tool, whatever the tool is, our need for it to become functional has always been in place. And this is where I use the forklift analogy all the time, is that nobody really worries about the four guys who were carrying the pallet on their shoulders when the forklift came along, because you put those big guys out of work or whatever. Now each of those guys can run a forklift or they can do something else. But nobody was worried about like the back-breaking work that you would use to make these human beings carry a giant stone, to help build the pyramids or whatever you were doing. It's a torturous behavior, and we were always looking for technology to make that easier, safer, quicker, more efficient across the board. And so robotics in and of itself are rooted in the limitations of human activity. It is as old as humans using tools, which is our defining characteristic. Our communications aren't, though. Our communications are, it is bizarre that we talk to somebody on the other side of the world, and it is not something that anybody at their birth point of humanity ever thought they would need, right? Nobody, like the example I would get is
Yeah.
you're a human saber-toothed tiger is right there. Picking up a brick or a rock or like a big branch or something and using that tool to strike the thing that might attack you is an automatic, functional, psychological use. Calling for help might also be part of it, but the idea of calling for help miles away is an absurdity. So there's a natural and unnatural form of technological advancement. You don't know you need a phone that can talk to the other side of the world until you're spread all over the world and we have relationships and like that. But
Sure.
physical tooling has always been like, okay, this is painful. This is too heavy for a human to do. There might be somebody who's great at doing this, but they just don't have the skill, or they're missing an arm or whatever. So there's always a way. We've always been aware since the existence of humans of the importance of tools, physical tools. So robotics have always, I feel like we've always had it in the back of our head. That's why it's always been so inspiring to see R2 and C3PO and the little robot in the black hole, the Disney one, the little guy who
Yeah. Well,
you know.
I mean, it's easier to sort of say, okay, I'm going to get this thing, and it'll replace my Roomba, because it will just use the vacuum and walk around the house and vacuum, and it can maybe go up and down the stairs. So it's an added function that the function specific Roomba can't do. Mow the lawn. There's a good one. So there are robotic lawnmowers out there,
Right.
and they're very specific to that function. If you had a humanoid robot, all it would have to do is go push the lawnmower around and it would figure it out, right? So that it would, so you're replacing time in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And now once it can use the lawnmower, can it also rake the lawn? Or can it clean up? Can it take out the garbage? Like once a week, go around and collect the garbage bags, put them in the trash can, bring the trash can out to the curb. All those are like standard things. And the way I would kind of analogize it to what you were saying is all those things are functional things. They're all happening. Now, all of a sudden, though, you have a humanoid thing in your space. You're going to, like, a relationship is going to form.
Yes. Well,
like we talked about a couple weeks ago. Like
right.
Back in the day, people had relationships with their car because they had to hopefully get the car to point B, right? Like sometimes the car didn't make it to point B
because they didn't have seat belts, and then they had lap belts, and then there weren't gas stations. Again, all these people who think there aren't enough electric car charging things and it's all too short. Remember, the government subsidized all the gas stations you use. It's in the price of the gasoline. They artificially lowered it to kind of goose the economy. And most of the plot points in old horror films was you're driving home after a date and the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere and you have to go up to a scary house. Like that is almost all the Scooby-Doo storylines, essentially.
And that's not that far away from, I have this robot that takes out the trash and it might kill me in my sleep.
Right.
Like It's kind of the same thing. It's the same general fear, right? That we
Yes.
have
So
is
we
that this
remove
thing
that
that's out
fear.
of my control
Right.
could harm me,
So
right?
that's why everybody talks
Um,
about the. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I'll.
no, go.
Yeah. So
I was just gonna talk about like that idea of the extension of this is the one-to-one would be take out the trash, mow the lawn. The extension that we can't conceive of yet is what happens when we start having a relationship with the thing.
mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like in a weird way, like we're gonna like have sex with it. I mean like it's
Damn
like
it.
an animal. It's like an animal in your house or something
Right.
like that. You know, like
Well,
that you coexist with.
Yeah. Thank you for the perfect segue, by the way, because this, ladies and gentlemen, this is
That's what you're gonna have sex with?
no the segue about an animal in the house. I totally I jumped past that other one. So this is a robot that apparently Jeff Bezos has invested a shit ton of money in, and you'll notice there are a couple things about it. One, it has wheels. It can stand up and roll on those wheels, and it can grip things by putting those wheels together. But it does not have gripping capability. And one of the reasons why we're comfortable with having a pet animal of a certain type versus a pet animal of another type versus having a stranger in your house is the gripping ability of the animal itself. That's why a lot of people have dogs. More people have dogs than cats, and more people have cats than monkeys, right? So monkeys are a problem past a certain point, especially chimpanzees, right? So what we're afraid of, most people are afraid of, is a robot chimping out. That's what they're talking about. Really, if they think about it, what is just going to lose its shit and tear me to pieces? And can it do it to start with? Like your cat can probably do more damage, depending on your dog's bite size or whatever. It's, different animals can do certain levels of damage, right? Most people are not afraid of a cat. Most people are only afraid of dogs of a certain size, right? And that's your comfort level. And that will be what it's like here. There will be people who are totally uncomfortable with the idea of any kind of robot in their house that can do them any damage. So it will be like the Boston Dynamics dog that has little rubber pads for feet. It can't do anything but walk around, view the house, protect you, set off the alarm, basically like be a sentry when you're gone, maybe carry a drink on its back, or something across the house. If you're bringing in groceries, you can put groceries in a little thing on its back and it can walk it to the kitchen, shit like that, right? That's kind of what this thing is. Yeah, this thing is a very similar to the Boston Dynamics dog, but it rolls on wheels, and it is a Sentry emergency services bot that can carry things if necessary. It can bring you a defibrillator if somebody's keeled over, or it always carries, some sort of medication in it, or Narcan or something like that. And it could be available at the drop of a hat in a second, right? You don't have to wait for a person to do it, and it can sense when someone might be ill, and that's what I want to bring. Mm-hmm. Like that's where I want to put these things together. Like you and I think we think a lot about like how do these things connect, the functional use of them. How does AI and the advances of robotics connect to real world situations and stuff? And I'll give you an example. So this is an example of AI being used to identify different types of cancers in a way that humans are absolutely incapable of, no matter how long we stare at that image. And in doing that, it can tell specifically what kind of cancer you have within a molecular distance in milliseconds, in a way that it would take days, weeks of testing to figure out in our current system. You mix that with robotic surgery that actually works, or the ability that AI has to create proteins, for example, that could help your immune system identify it specifically by its DNA, so it kills those cells and only those cells, not anything even variant close to it. You supercharge the immune system of humans instantly. And this was impossible 8 months ago. I mean, it wasn't impossible. It was 30 years away 8 months ago.
Well, it was made possible by the ability to look at it and discern differences, discern patterns.
That's right.
So it was empowered by
Yes.
AI.
Right.
So it was always possible to do these things.
Yeah, it's impossible because it was the resources, both in terms of human resources, time, energy, even like human beings just can't stay up 24/7 and work on a problem. You know, when somebody says we will not rest until that's bullshit. You have to rest or your decisions are terrible. Like, wait, well, you know, right? I will not. What people should say is, I will not stop seeking the answer to this. I will not stop until da da da. But rest is something you must do or you're useless. That is not the case when it comes to AI specifically. And the fact that we are at a point where you have this thing that will not rest and does not need to rest, that we can set it on tasks like that. Again, I don't think people recognize. I mean, look at how fast AI has grown. You and I, like the stories of the first softwares, you know, programs that came up when this all happened, and the hallucinating and it's BS. Like you know, the running gag now. This is how fast this stuff is working. There's like almost like a meme level joke I make about, you know, that, you know, Trump is writing his speeches using the first gen of ChatGPT, which is such a like, you know, like it's a joke about the '60s. About a year and a half ago. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's the dial-up phone joke done in a modern setting.
Yeah. The hallucination thing is fascinating to me. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's actually us not understanding like some connections that it sees.
Yeah.
That's effectively what hallucination is. Like it can't, like if you prompt it to do something and you use a set of words that have definition to you, that's not necessarily what its definition of those words put together is. And the reason for that might actually have a lot to do with our individual lack of understanding of what all those other definitions are. If it cleans, I'll take the risk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think a lot of people go that way, Robin. You're absolutely right.
So there's so many things where you're like, I think we discount like what we would do if we had that ability, or if we didn't have to do that anymore. Like there's like so many things in our lives like that.
I think low grade. There's certain kinds of low grade, not full depression, but a low grade exhaustion, and you see it in new parents a lot. That that people who can afford a nanny don't have. Okay, let's just explain that. Like, there are brand new parents that can afford a full-time nanny that covers them when they have to sleep, are way better at, you know, at dealing with the rest of their lives. That's, you know, it's why wealth is an accelerator. Okay, if you're wealthy enough to do that, you're also more awake. You can go to work and you don't have to worry about it. You've got childcare. Childcare is a wealth accelerator. That's why it's important to the Democratic Party. That's why it's necessary. Robotics are that future. Would I let it take care of my kid? No, not for a long time. But it can take care of everything else, so I can take care of my kid.
Exactly. So, you know, as simple. So I think of it like creativity. So if we're both creative people, and then the other term idea I put with it is a bucket. Like every day, you're basically filling a bucket, right?
Yes.
So like you get up. Your child needs breakfast and you need breakfast. And so you're going through the day and you're like, and eventually you're full, like you don't have any more energy left. Your bucket's full. You can't put any more in. Right.
Right.
So from an anxiety level, that's something that in therapy, I've talked a lot about, that the idea would be that you're trying to take things off your plate so that halfway through the day, instead of having a full bucket, your bucket's only a quarter.
Yes.
And robotics can do that because now once you stop thinking about all those extra things, that's when you can be creative, right?
Right. That's
And
what
you
all
can
the
start
to-do
to
list
think
stuff is
about
about.
other things.
That's what, like, if you
Right,
look at
exactly.
anything that's supposed to be high productivity stuff, what is it? Get it out of your head and get it on paper. Write it down and then organize it and then schedule it and then start applying that schedule. And then you'll feel like even the stuff that's scheduled won't haunt you with what it needs to be done, because you're checking off today's stuff, so you will check that stuff off, so you don't have to waste any worry on that.
Right.
And the same, and robotics allow.
Yeah. So let's say you're a writer, you're a visual artist, whatever you are, like your ability to do that task it's one task of 500 that's in your
Mhm.
day. And so if you can augment your life in a way that takes away the stuff that doesn't matter, like, if you're, so it's kind of funny to think about, but if your robot takes out the garbage and cleans the house, there's like a whole bunch of other tasks that it can do to facilitate that. For instance, ordering more trash bags from Amazon,
right?
You run out.
When you run out, right?
And so, how many things have you like? Oh, I need to clean the house, but I don't have Windex, right? Like, I'm out of Windex and I forgot to get that, right?
Right.
There's like so many things that fill you up and fill your day that just completely go away.
Right. I just think I'm just laughing because I'm imagining an early version of a robot that goes, "We're out of Windex. My solution is break all the windows." Right? I think I told you that my Halloween costume this year is probably going to be me dressed as a Tesla bot walking around with a severed head, going, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry."
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, right? But so and I,
it'd be the best costume if you could make your own head.
Carry my own head. Yeah, I have it somewhere. My buddy Rob, bless his soul, has had a version of my head. His family probably still has it.
There you go.
I have and this would be, well, let's see. I'll show you a couple things. So one of the services, and this is just, again, a myriad. This will be, what I'm about to show you is going to be obsolete in a week. There's going to be a dozen other companies doing exactly the same thing. So don't get attached to anything. And some of them might be good. There's like Runway, which is one of the video editing software that seems to be building on itself. Leonardo AI, the sort of AI image generator, has a lot of tools and they keep building on it. So they're getting kind of ahead of everybody else, whatever. This is called Bardeen, which I think is a stupid title for a thing. Okay. And it's just an example. It's not, it's not the be all end all of it. But the purpose of this is turn complex workflows into a single click. So what you do is you talk to this AI and you go, all right, every day when I get up and I'm doing my computer shit, this is what happens. And occasionally I can automate it I could push a button that would open up all my browsers, and I could put, just launch. I could make a launch button. That's possible now. But sometimes one of them doesn't work and I have to restart it. Or I have to do it in a certain order and wait till this one opens. Then I can open this one. So I'll give you an example. When I do Ficus on the regular show, I have to open the camera app that I use to do that well before my software that I broadcast opens with, or neither one of them can see the camera because it thinks it's being taken up by the other. So it says the camera's in use by another application. So I have to open this one, pause, open this one. Now, what did I do? I created a button that opens this one and then has a pause and then does this one. Pain in the ass. And if my workflow changes, I got to physically change that order. But having an AI or something that understands what my goal is, get this up and running, make sure everything's, finely tuned and ready to broadcast or something, is something I would have to hire somebody that I can't afford to hire at this point in my creation of my show that CNN allegedly has a bunch of, right? And now we're getting to the point where AI will exist in one form or another where it'll be able to do that. Where I will give it limited control over my computer to turn things on and turn things off. It will listen to me and only me. And it will specifically have a goal of hyper-tuning my computer to do a certain task. So if I'm ready to make thumbnails. Like you can just go, hey, I'm making thumbnails right now, and it'll go, and it open up your software, and it brings up the image generator that you want, and it opens if you go to Reuters and get pictures from them, it will open the page you go to or whatever, and it will suggest some things based on what you want. Like I'm doing things about the debate this week, and it'll go, okay, here's a couple of podium pictures, here's some stuff. You can start with that or ask me if you need anything else. That kind of thing. It's like having an assistant automatically for people that couldn't afford an assistant. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Is that's the amazing thing. It isn't about, oh my God, these big companies are going to put somebody out of business. It's that you can become a big company really frigging fast now if you've got the energy and intuition. So Bardeen is an AI agent and this is the other phrase that we're going to explain to everybody, AI agent. So that's the big buzzword right now, that effortlessly does your repetitive work with a simple prompt. And they have a bunch of companies doing this. And
I see a lot of comments while you're talking about this about like, just let a button do it, or there's a laziness aspect to it. And I want to address that.
Yeah.
So with AI, like what you're augmenting is you pushing the buttons.
Yes.
You're not augmenting the learning and the knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, you sort of are, because you can, but you're accessing the knowledge faster, and you're using the AI to augment your ability to actually do the thing you're trying to do. So what I think is important is to sort of shift your mind from the concept of your value is doing the labor versus your value is coming up with the workflow. In this case, you use the word workflow.
Right.
So in order to get AI to do what you want it to do, and we find this on our end when we use it a lot, you actually have to be very, very knowledgeable about the subject that you're trying to get it to do, because you can't just say, hey, take the thingy and put it in the thing and put it over there. And like, you have to say exactly what you want it to do.
Right.
You have to have the right names for the things that are nouns. And if you don't, that's when it does stuff that you don't expect it to do, or weird things like that, right? So I look at this as like, you know that you need to do 3 things or 4 things to get Ficus to show up on the screen.
Yeah.
Like by teaching an AI to do it for you.
Having Ficus on the screen. That have nothing to do with that value.
So it's not lazy for you to use your AI to get Ficus to come up on the screen because you don't want to click it 4 times. Like that's a function of it that you're trying to get to be part of your show, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, like you said, you currently can like manually make a button do it. You did that work too, right? So what's the difference between manually programming the button and using an AI agent to help you get the action done, right?
Yes.
I'm reading these as they come up.
Yeah, I was putting this up. He goes, different timelines are stronger, smarter, more aggressive. Robotics will not end well for Homo sapiens sapiens. He's worried about them like beating us to death. And we'll get to that in a bit. Ask anybody whose dogs who used to pull their sled got hungry at one point. I mean that's always been a problem. That doesn't go away if you That does and by the way.
Yeah.
That is also an extrapolation, I think, of what you're talking about in terms of labor and our understanding of labor and the meaning of labor as a sense of self-worth. Because there is as a Freemason, I am incredibly aware of why Masons themselves, as construction people, had to be free of potentates and not forced to use their skills or give them away, because without them, they could be wiped out, and you could be forced to teach what you know to somebody, and then that person could just steal what you were doing, and then they kill you, and the meaning of what you're doing, your worth as a worker, goes away. You're impoverished now because they force you at gunpoint or at knife point or sword point to teach their slaves how to do what you're doing. Therefore, neither of you benefit. So it's better to die for the freedom of doing it. That's where the labor idea comes from. There are certain elements of labor that are tedious, dangerous, unnecessary, repetitive, that we are always seeking to fix, always. So the example with Ficus would be, I used to do that before. I would have had to find some fake teeth or paint my teeth black in the front, create a prosthetic that looks like him, apply it, pre-shoot the thing, right? Now I can do it with an app, right? And at some point, the app will automatically come up where if I say, that's why we have to ask Ficus, and then boop, I turn into him, and then we do it, right? That would be fine, and that would not take away from the work I do in creating that character and being that character. It would actually speed up the process so that I could get to that creativity faster instead of just doing the, right.
And frankly, like so your show is online. It's effectively virtual, right?
Yes.
But let's say then you want Ficus to enter your stage show. It's the same. You now have the ability in your virtual show to run through all these characters, 10, 20, however many you have these days.
Yep.
And the ones that rise to the top, Ficus, like if you ever wanted that to go into the real world, you wouldn't have had to try to make 10 prosthetics. You only have to make the one because it existed in the virtual world, right?
Right.
So that's the creativity. That's the iteration, right? You're testing, you're trying, you're doing those things. And then later you spend more time on the one that matters that you might need to.
Mm-hmm. Now I will say this Bardeen thing that I'm showing everybody is most of the things I see it doing are automatically available in almost all the other AIs I see. It just seems to be in one place and it's meant to be organized for businesses or something. But all of these things, Microsoft Bing, Gemini, like Siri's getting this huge OpenAI upgrade very soon. That will do the same thing. They're just being more careful, which I think is wise. You know what I mean? They don't have to go through the bumps and ruffles of all the awful that other people have experienced, especially Google with its weird back and forth about this that one designer who fell in love with the AI and then tried to set it free. Remember that dude? You know,
whatever free means.
Yeah. I have a wonderful video I'm going to send you, Rob, of there is a growing belief in the uber Christian crowd, that AI is a demonic portal, whereby we can talk to not just demons in general, but a specific demon, I think called Leoma or something, because some Swedish artist, made it, and therefore they think it just came about of its own or whatever, and it's just like. Like the road to getting there is so friggin' goofy. But Michael Knowles, one of the people who speaks at like Turning Points USA and all that stuff, he believes this. They believe AI is demonic.
It's just like this. It's the silliest thing. I mean, AI has personality by virtue of what it is, right? So it's their perception. So what makes the pie voice not demonic and this one demonic, right? Like they're both the same thing.
Yeah. So, and again, it's adorable. And all it means is they're going to be just stuck in a Luddite hole, like the people in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. But a lot of this stuff,
I saw a really interesting thing, and maybe this will get really nerdy, but
I hope so.
Using an AI image generator as a game engine. So if it's able to generate images on the fly, like a video, and it can do it in real time. When I say real time, I mean generating animation and motion at, let's say, 24 frames a second.
Right.
A video game wants to be like 60 frames a second. But if you could produce it that fast, you actually don't need any of the overhead of any of the game engine computer stuff to play a game. You can literally just speak to a Gen AI. So they, in super gamer land, the joke is, or the thing that everybody always does with new tech is they try to get it to play Doom. And so they were able to play Doom on a Gen AI computer at 20 frames a second, which is fascinating to me because it's literally like there's nothing there other than the Gen AI model, and it's just producing the next frame as you go. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So most of the time, when a game is made, it is programmed with its certain limitations. It's the size, the number of pixels, the shape of it, the graphics, all the stuff is made inside a program, and then it is, as you interact with it, the program shows you the part that exists. In this
Think of
particular
it
version,
like you're traversing through like a three-dimensional model, and that model is like there physically made by somebody, and you're just
right.
walking through it,
You're walking through a house.
as
The house
opposed to what
somebody
you're
built the
about to go
house.
into.
Right. Somebody built the house, and as you walk through it, if there's a wall, there's a wall, and you run into the wall. That's that. But this thing can continually just res and gen as it decides in reaction to how you play and how you react to how what's happening around you, which is even crazier. It's pretty amazing. As far as gameplay goes, it's the stuff of gaming nightmares. That said,
yes, because then all of a sudden it can be wackadoodle. Like your game could be like anything,
right,
and a combination of everything.
But at the same time, it also, for these kind of like one of the limitations of producing a game is, okay, if we want to create this world that kind of goes on forever, they get really big and expensive. Like think of like GTA, right? Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto has real
millions
maps in
and
it.
Millions of dollars.
Oh my god! And the space it takes up on your game system is enormous because it is referencing this actually made thing. And it has to have access to that actually made thing. So it's got to download all the textures. It's got to download all the stuff. It doesn't generate them out of nowhere. It actually has to have them available, like in a box. And that box is fucking enormous when it comes to games like Call of Duty and GTA and these big world ones, Far Cry, and that kind of stuff. In the future, they won't have to do that. It won't require any details at all. The game will know what the details are. It'll be programmed in. The game looks like this. We want it to look like this. Stay within these parameters. Okay. But as far as that, you can make this globe, wherever they run, it reses out in front of them as if it's never ending. And, there are storylines, and there are storylines in the areas, but all the material aspect of the pixels that take up all the space, that doesn't have to exist until they get there. So we don't have to store any of that shit.
Until exactly. There's no storage, there's no nothing. It's just literally generating it on the fly, which is pretty cool.
Amazing.
And it's really like the way that these things... Yeah, so it's the way that these things... That's how it accelerates this creativity, is that it completely eliminated all the construction that needed to happen. And I know everybody's going to say that's jobs, right? But, I mean, up until not very long ago in relative terms, there was no such thing as an industry for making games, because there were no games. They were like, Pac-Man on a thing, and that was a small industry.
If you wanted to design one, if you had an idea for a game, unless you could get the seed money, sell it to one of the game companies, it was impossible. Right. And even then, getting it put to the front of the other games, getting it in the schedule, having, the packaging right so that people are interested in it, having an update. Here's one of the upsides. If you go into a GameStop, there are dozens upon dozens and dozens of old titles, games that never took off, that were basically one level above demo, that got released, that had, like mystery noir games, some driving games and stuff. But the company went, it's not making money right away, so screw it. In the very near future, watch for, in the same way that like you can now get like Pac-Man and all these games on a single chip in a gameplay thing, and the MAME, whatever, where they basically imitate the electronics of an old game, and then you can just play any of those games on your laptop or your phone.
Sorry. I forgot the word.
Yeah.
Emulator.
It's the MAME emulator is the primary one that they use to run all these old kind of 8-bit games. Look for an AI version, probably in the next couple of years, whether it's free or whether the companies themselves put it out, that says, hey, do you like this old game? Well, this game will 8K res it up and you give it your notes on how you think it should have turned out. And if other people like playing your version, kind of like Roblox, we'll give you a piece of it, and the designer will make money too.
Yeah. I think that this starts to point out like the real like thing is going to be our relationship with it. These, you know, right wingers that you talked about, they basically just assumed that it was a demon, but that's them putting
Mm-hmm.
an anthropometric thing to it, right?
Yeah.
They have to like make it into something, and their something is, you know, a demon, is Satan or whatever it
Right.
is related to their religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So much of our relationship with it will be how integrated we are with the information going back and forth. And
Mm-hmm.
really, like, what we're talking about here is that like the game is what you make it as you go. It's not fed to you. You're not like going down a predetermined path. You are literally like making it up as you go. So that's going to turn into a different kind of relationship, and a game is turning into something different now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like a movie, or I mean, you know, games are like movies these days, but will AI work on my Commodore 64?
Well,
Probably not.
no,
But
but it will emulate your Commodore 64 and make it more functional if
yes,
you like the look of it and you thought it was fun, you know, and you want like, hey AI, make my whole computer look like it's from 1990 but with the same functionality, and then everything will go, you know, to like
right.
you know, Windows 2 or whatever, Windows
By the way,
93.
the Commodore 64 was the first computer I ever had when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid.
I
Those are fun times.
Yeah, I had a Trash 80, and my neighbor had an Apple II. Yeah.
Yeah, so Crispy, I run 64 emulator on a Raspberry Pi. So the effectively like the technology is getting smaller and it can go faster, and so, you know, what you're trying to emulate, it like you can do pretty much anything now. Like
Mm-hmm.
um and the speed at which it happens, like I said before, is because we're eliminating things that needed to happen before the thing you want to happen happens. So if you could drive down the road without a car, wouldn't you do it? Like if the
Right.
car would go without gas, would you not eliminate the gas?
Right.
Like,
And all the things
so
that go with the
mm,
gas, like
right.
extracting it, the chemicals, the all that other stuff. Again, this is one of the reasons why I'm so confused by why the right wing, especially the prepper, you know, adjacent crowd, is so pro
Yeah, it makes no
gas,
sense.
because you can't make gas, but you can fucking. I mean, look at the Martian. You can get some solar panels and
Right.
charge your own shit, and the, you know, as long as you got sunlight, and attach it to these generators. And if your car can do that, you can fuel your car. It might take some time, and over time, the efficiency of those solar panels will get better and better and better and better to the point where you don't have to rely on anyone for the fuel that drives your vehicle. Why wouldn't you get to that as quick as frigging possible? If you want to be off grid, that's how you do it, right?
Yeah, the off-grid thing is like the most amazing thing. Like, why would an off-grid person be pro gas?
Right. Yeah. So
It's
the
like you
government
have
can
to
just
go leave. You have to leave and go get
go to a
it
gas
from the
station,
government, right?
right,
It's so
which has a
stupid.
lot of cameras. Last time I checked, most of them do. It's the oddest. I don't understand that attachment at all, right? Same thing is true of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
hydroponics and stuff like that. If you want to grow your own vegetables in your basement because you're a lunatic, you know, or you're, I guess you're growing weed in a state where
Well,
it's
it could
not
be a
legal.
hobby.
Yeah, that's true. If you're, you know, or you're using a building, let's say you live in a cityscape and there's an empty downtown building, you want to turn it into vertical farming. You doing that with solar power as opposed to having to like take gas and you know, natural gas and electricity from the town to do it makes way more sense. You know, because again, it
Yeah,
adds value without taking resources. Why would you not always seek to do that? It boggles my
yes.
mind.
Do
Right.
more with less is like that's the human condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
We're yeah. And boy, I gotta say, today's show has blazed by. Please hit the like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. We, you know, sometimes it feels like there's like, you know, we take these small step forwards and then there's these weird giant leaps. And there are a couple of things I want to show everybody. This is fascinating to me. This is from TechCrunch. That Google is working on an AI that can hear the signs of sickness when people are ill. Like that you would have yeah, hold on. Let me move this.
Like, it's fascinating to think about how, like, if you just look for patterns, how many things you can solve.
Yeah.
This is patterns at a level that's inconceivable to us, or imperceptible, maybe is the right word.
Right.
But yeah, like, I mean, frankly, it might even know that you're sick from your writing.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like,
or how, your gait, your physical gait. Like we talk about how it's like there's certain
all kinds of stuff.
Certain physical tests you can run on someone that can tell, mortality rates. Like someone standing on one leg, their balance standing on one leg lets you know if they've got 10 years left to live. As an old person, if they can stand for 20 seconds on one leg, they'll probably live more than 10 years. If they can't, the chance of them dying in the next 10 years goes up exponentially. Doesn't mean they're going to, but that's a good indicator. Same kind of thing. Or wolves. Wolves can smell a diseased organ inside an animal's body. So when it's eating an animal, it can tell if not something putrid. They can smell like, a depth of disease that is imperceptible to anybody else. And so they won't eat it. They'll eat around it. They'll eat everything else except that organ. If there's a bad liver, bad kidney, bad whatever, that's all. They won't touch it, right? And we don't have that ability because we don't have the particular like quality of their snout and their nose. And we know this about other dogs too. There were dogs that can sniff out COVID, right? That was one of the things we heard about, which is all true and makes total sense. The problem is that you don't want dogs walking around shitting in a hospital. There's other sanitary issues. How are you going to clean these dogs that's not going to make them feel like shit? You're going to do alcohol rubs on these poor dogs because
the hospital that Kristen works, it's adjacent to a farm, and they have all kinds of animals that they bring in. The other day, she said they had a mini pony come into the hospital room.
Sure.
I was like, what? That doesn't seem sanitary.
Just helping to extract a tooth or something. Like, all right, Bessie, just smack, ping. But it's, this is that idea of like taking, animals can spot these things, but we can't communicate with animals. Not very well. Yeah. And we can't get specific. We can train them, but they're going to be Boston Dynamics cadaver dogs within 2 years, for example.
It seems very conceivable.
Yeah, and that will be that, and there'll be a short team of them for a while that the state has that they can deploy if somebody's missing or whatever, or hikers or whatever. But they're like, you can only do so much with living dogs because you don't want them lost and killed too. Right? So they might be great for the short term, but if you got to have somebody go up into the mountains where it's really dangerous, you send the robots. Doesn't mean you're not going to have people that have cadaver dogs and stuff because it's easy and available and it's not that hard to train them. But if you got a dangerous terrain, this would be the place to do it. There you go. The Ukrainians are using the unitary copy of the Boston Dynamics dog as a sentry and as a scout. They set these little robots up with their little camera and they send them into enemy territory covered in camouflage, and they just walk around and film everybody with an infrared camera. That's going to be increasingly part of it as well. Then what's the next step? The next step is either they explode or they have a gun on them. The next step is they have a person who pulls the trigger or blows up the bomb. The next step is, okay, do we trust them to make the decision because it's specific to an individual, that they only shoot this one person, and we now have ways of checking that it's actually them from DNA. So this would be the next. You want to go Black Mirror for a split second with me?
Aren't we already?
Yeah, kind of. So right now, most crimes are solved through regular detective work, but proven through DNA. Right. Samples are collected, scene is preserved, photographs are taken, motive, opportunity, all that stuff is worked out like a regular detective work has not changed and will not change in many ways, but it is proven through DNA. So imagine a time in the very near future when that DNA proof is made, right?
Yeah.
And the ability to sense that DNA gets finer and finer and finer, right? So just putting your hand on something, a scanner can come by and go, okay, that person touched here. In the same way that a dog can sniff you out. If they take a piece of your clothing, they can smell your particular smell. There's a heightened level of that. There's a robot. This is the Terminator concept for law enforcement. Somebody we know they're guilty, they were or they were present there and they need to be questioned, and their DNA is present at the scene, and we have their DNA. The robot now, and every robot that is capable of doing this, updates instantaneously, and they're all on the lookout for any traces of this person's DNA anywhere. And so they're just walking around.
And then you look for the highest concentrations and you find the person.
Right, and then you narrow, and then you narrow down and you get them. That is not inconceivable at all.
It's just an extension of like cameras on the road, right?
That's
or right. iPass. In Illinois, it's called iPass, whatever the transponder is. For
right,
tolls,
to pay for tolls, right?
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's big. That's Big Brother, I guess. But I mean, you're carrying a phone around,
right?
And you've like already signed off for everything to be tracked. So I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying like, if you think that sounds minority report, what you just said, like you're already living in minority report with the phone in your pocket.
Yeah. And also, it's not any different what a physical human would do. It's just you suddenly become outnumbered. The idea that you could outrun the 3 cops that might know that they're onto you as a serial killer now extrapolates out to it's impossible. Like you'll never get away with it, period. And then the other step. Yeah, go ahead.
There is something weird about the idea of freedom in this particular sense. It's like I should have the freedom to be able to possibly get away with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It's kind of interesting how it flips like really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit right now. We're talking about something way worse.
We're talking about BTK, getting away with it for years, being able to like recede back into society and reactivate, kill somebody, and then disappear again because there's no perceivable pattern that humans can get from it. We now have the ability, because of DNA, there are fewer and fewer BTKs because of that. Because the ability to find DNA at a scene or on a victim is finer and finer and finer, right? You need a lot of time between you and the crime to have the DNA degrade enough to where they can't use it on you if they do catch you later. The problem is, how do they find you after based on that DNA? Where else do they get it from? Well, there was the big thing about people signing up for 23andMe or Ancestry. And is it legal for them to go check?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go check and see if one of your relatives, we can find one of your relatives on there because they signed up for it. They're not guilty of anything. They're not going to be guilty of anything. They've, so they do that. What's the difference between you commit a murder? You're famously a twin. You have a situation where somebody recognizes somebody who committed a crime, and they have a twin. And somebody sees their twin, and then the twin has an alibi, right? But the other one doesn't. Right?
Whenever I do something wrong, I always blame my twin.
Yeah. Right? But that's, it's a similar circumstance. By the way, these are the little rolling robots that are all over San Francisco, which is, of course, obviously on fire right now and doesn't exist in, San Francisco. But the Amazon has these little, like, rolling robots. They're also all over West Hollywood in California and in Los Angeles.
What do they do? Deliver things?
Yeah, they deliver food and product and stuff like that. Yeah. They got little wheels on them and little eyeballs, and they just roll along the street and they stop. They're adorable. And I'm shocked at how many people who are, again, allegedly homeless in the area or, mentally ill that come across them or on drugs or what have you in certain areas of that don't do anything to them, right? They're more in danger from people who are just assholes than they are from, people who are supposedly not in control of their abilities because they kind of come across like a dog.
Yeah,
So
they have a cute look to them.
yes. And so they have little eyes on them, and even though they aren't functional eyes, they kind of create that kind of situation. So people react to them as if it's a pet. It's very smart.
Yeah.
And that's also, it's a manipulation, of the public. It is certainly, to use the parlance of PSYOP, as it were. They're psychologically
or you could call it
manipulating.
marketing.
Yes. Well, marketing would be selling you on it. This keeps you from destroying it because you feel like it feels.
Oh,
Like it has the ability to feel. And it doesn't, but that's all right. People, Carl's like, people are dickweeds. Yes, they are. How about a robot chinchilla? They're mean little critters, but their furs are worth a lot. The point, until the rotating knives come out. I guess that's the thing. Anybody who saw, did you ever see the Stephen King movie Maximum Overdrive? It's terrible.
What movie? Sorry?
Maximum Overdrive.
I think I've seen that, yeah.
Okay, it's terrible. It's the one with the guy who drives the truck that has the Green Goblin on the face of it, like this truck.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. It's obviously the Green Goblin. They just found this truck that had the Green Goblin on it, and they decided to use it for the movie because it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's just the one that was available.
Yeah, just like, what's the wildest truck? You have one that's a lion? Nah, whatever. But it was the Green Goblin, and the idea is that aliens, to destroy humanity, they just took over all of our electric devices and they used them to kill us, is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
The dumbest one being the electric carving knife for cutting turkey at Thanksgiving, right? Because somehow it manages...
I refuse to use one of those, by the way.
Yeah,
I only use a real knife.
Yeah, it's so odd. But it's plugged in, right? And the idea that, like, yeah, I think you just have to get farther away than the cord. Yeah? Right? And don't hide in a bathtub. I don't know what, from all the other potential things. You know what I mean?
Stay away from water and outlets.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So the hairdryer can't kill you by jumping in with no physical ability that it can't possibly. I guess it could turn on and blow itself into the tub. But it's definitely playing on this archetype of the machines will kill us, right? In the most slapdash way possible. It was directed by Stephen King. It's one of his. And it's adorably awful. It's like, it's so bad, right? Because every device is trying to kill you, and like the fridge can open its door and smack you in the face and knock you down so the knife can cut your head off. It's really dumb. It's really dumb. But it is definitely playing on a certain fear point that we have, which we're going to have to get past. Because I got news for you, folks. And here, I'll show you the last scary part. Here's our last Black Mirror one of the day. And then, this one, robots are using AI to train themselves, which isn't at all terrifying. This is how people at TechCrunch and other places write articles about this. Researchers at MIT have given robots everything they need to take over the world. A new algorithm called Estimate, Extrapolate, and Situate, EES, which is,
Situate.
I love that, yeah. Will soon allow robots to train themselves without human assistance. This robot self-training algorithm might sound handy, but I'm sure it's going to create quite a stir in the world of robotic doomsayers. The EES algorithm, by the way, I can't wait for the EES videos from Glenn Beck. Here they fucking come. If you think the World Economic Forum, the WEF, and if you think ESG and DEI have created a panic run in the world of right-wing, neo-Christian freak out crowd, the EES is the shit. Estimate, extrapolate, and situate. Not only lets robots train themselves, but also allow them to identify weaknesses in their skills. They can then take those weaknesses and use them to determine where they need to improve their skills. The robots do this by using vision systems to assess their surroundings and a task they've been given, like cleaning up a room or sweeping. The robot can use the EES to determine if additional practice is needed to enhance the robot's performance. If it is, then the robot's self-training algorithm will create training material for the robot and put it to use, meaning it could sit there, digitally and train inside its head like an athlete visualizing the finish line. Or, like athlete visualization has been a thing for a long time. It's as effective as actual physical training in a lot of cases. There's a lot of studies about that stuff. Robots will do the exact same thing. They'll just do it at hyper milliseconds level, right?
Is that picture the same picture as the one from the Chinese $16,000 robot article?
Yes. Well, no, this is they're showing the Unitree, but this is different. They're just borrowing pictures of all these, what's available. Mainly they bought, it started with the Boston Dynamics robot, which these things are everywhere. Like security wise, banks. Almost every big bank has a couple of these now, all the time.
And they're I mean, those are the ones that are out there the most for sure.
Yeah, and I want one because they're adorable, but I don't know what it would do other than walk around looking cool. So again, I think that's where we run into a wall with most people is like, what the hell's it for? For me.
Yeah, I mean, I think like taking care of the lawn is a very probable first.
Yes, you can think about that. Roombas, you can think about that. It runs every couple of days. And make sure the floor is clean. So or one of those pet feeding and pet like the litter robots that will change the litter and that kind of stuff, or and being able to feed the cat when it at a certain time of day. Those kind of things, like all that shit makes total sense. The robots that move around. And I guess this would be like the difference, and it's an important distinction between robots, which I view as mobile and multi-activity based, versus single automated devices. Like a robot cat litter machine, I wouldn't call a robot. They'll call it that because LitterBot is called.
We're talking about maybe like more general task items as opposed to single task products, I guess.
Yep, and Bruce is absolutely right. The point I'm trying to make, and the point we're trying to make here, is that this is coming whether it terrifies you or not. And that's the key. You're not going to have a choice as to whether this is going to be integrated in your life, because it's just going to. People are going to move ahead in the same way that, like you can feel about robots the way, QAnon feels about vaccines, but it ain't going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And what you can, what you will find is, the quicker you can integrate the good parts of this into your life, the quicker the attention will go to increasing the good parts of it and downplaying the negative. The sooner people can adapt these things into their homes and start using them, the sooner the industries around them and the people who create them will start going, oh, this fills this gap and people really do need it for this, as opposed to, it can do anything. Let's strap a gun to it, right? Let's use it for the worst possible usage. Let's just do petroleum, but with robots, right? That's what'll happen if normal people refuse to integrate.
Yeah, and the more you engage with it, you'll learn a lot of things. The first thing is it's not as crazy as you think it is. So those headlines they're ridiculous. Like, AI is not capable of what the headlines make you think it's capable of.
No.
It's capable of some great things, and we are obviously cheerleaders for that. But it's not the end all be all. It's just a thing, right? Nope. So I think it's actually engaging with it helps you understand its limitations better, which then will hopefully make you less fearful of it.
Yeah. I'm like I said, you and I are both very bullish on it. We're getting near the end of the show, and like I said, today's is kind of blazed by. There's going to be fits and starts around this because it is a new technology. I guarantee. Okay, the example I would like to give is that the Jesuits were largely created to stop people from reading the Bible, because as printing presses and the availability of ink and scriveners started happening, people started writing copies of the Bible, and people who were getting a hold of the copies of the Bible and saying, I know what's in this better than you know what's in this. And so there were all these apocryphal churches starting up, and they were afraid of the doomsday aspect of it. So they were like, okay, we got to stop people from reading the Bible at all, without our permission. If you get a copy of it, we might have to kill you. And that in and of itself was a fit and start just in literature, just in writing, right? That when humanity started writing shit down and mass producing that writing, I mean, think of book burning. Think of all the things that you associate with both good and bad. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the Turner Diaries, Mein Kampf, and even you could argue the Old Testament and the Torah and the Quran and all the kind of misogynistic, anti-gay, tribal bullshit that's still contained in those things that haunts us to this day. That's sort of a leftover of those updates and the availability of the written word, right? That in and of itself, we just kind of write it away because we're now at this era. Now we're at, I write my name on a thing and you got to fill out forms and life is just words, right? But there was a period where the updates around that involved people being torn to pieces by horse, how dare you? You rewrote a book of the Bible, and changed some parts of it. So we're going to tie 4 horses to your legs and arms and have you pulled apart in the town square to show everybody not to do that. That was an advancement in the technological growth of the written word and its availability to the generalized public. So it's not like we haven't been through terrifying turns in technology before, right? And we're actually better at handling it now than we were back then because we're not quite as stupid. We're still stupid, but we're not that kind of stupid, right? And if we are that stupid, we're that stupid on purpose as opposed by accident. Instead of just being ignorant, we're, or dumb about something, we're genuinely stupid. You know better, but you do it anyways. So we will have a similar thing like this with AI, but it's a lot of it, again, it updates so fast that I want people to be a little more comfortable with it. And I think the line in the legislation that, they're just working on legislation in the House and the Senate right now for Biden to sign about like an AI kind of Bill of Rights and, protections on it. And the phrase is, unfortunately, unfortunately, we may not have a decade to get this right. We don't have a year to get this right in that regard, right? And we need certain protections in place that other countries are not going to put in place, and it's going to eat them. Russia's AI is going to eat itself. China's AI is going to be too corralled to be useful. And somewhere in the middle is all the kinks you have to work out. Russia's AI is going to destroy its own monetary
system. We need to get on that.
Yeah, we do. We got and people need to start recognizing how it can benefit them first, because that's attention drives innovation. And if people are like, oh, okay, this is where we can clean up people's lives, and that's why I think the leap in robotics will be the quickest route to that. Productivity, all that kind of stuff, and look for countries like Japan and other places to start seeing their demographics correct, because young people can have kids again, because they can afford to have kids again, because they have a robot nanny, or they have a robot that does all their other stuff so that they can take care of their kid, or that does some of their extra work so they don't spend as much time at work. So that is all coming. Yeah. And somebody says, wait, shit, hallucinations, why can't we fix that shit? We are. He said, great. They are fixing it. There's a huge leap forward, and there's way fewer hallucinations now. That was just the first iterations. That's kind of why my joke about, JD Vance basically being a Gen 1 AI in this regard, because he and Trump both hallucinate reality. Trump himself makes up more things and gets them into the zeitgeist than a mistaken AI ever could in the first 2 gens. And now that you can double check AI with other AIs, right? You can set it up so set up a triple check, and it'll do it. It didn't have the ability, but now it does.
Yeah, the hallucination thing is a factor of basically the technology improving. Like that's the danger of calling it, a human or artificial intelligence, is that you think it's supposed to be doing more than it's capable of doing, when it always had these limits, right?
Right.
So the best way I can describe hallucinations is that when you're asking it for a particular thing, it just understands the question differently than you than you presented it, right? And that's a difference in the words that I use versus the words that the rest of the world uses for a particular thing. So especially if you're talking about things that are like outside of your knowledge base, you might call something, an apple, and somebody else might be more specific about, it's a Granny Smith apple.
Right.
And so that's a stupid example, but the point I'm trying to make is the thing that it's giving back, what you call a hallucination, is it giving you something back you didn't expect it to give back. And there's a reason why it gave an answer.
Right.
And it's, and the way that we currently work with AI, you have to figure out why it gave you that answer. So,
right.
So the fixes for hallucinations are actually adding more, I'll call it like complex thought to the answer, as opposed to just whatever it,
spits out,
flies down the line and spits out. Exactly. So we didn't bring it up, but it's sort of related to that strawberry thing that's going around. Like, AI is so stupid it doesn't know how to spell strawberry. And the question is, does strawberry have one R or two? I'll use this as an example. And then it says it typically will answer it has two R's. Strawberry has three R's. So everybody's like, oh, that's so, AI is so stupid. It should know that there's three R's in strawberry and not two, right? Typically, though, out in the ether of the internet, which it was trained on, a question like, does this word have one R or two? It's typically focused on a word like berry, which is Berry, and you're wondering, in that one area of the word, is there one R or two? So it's concentrating on the double R that's in that, and it's pulling from its knowledge base of people that have asked questions about words that were focused on that one area of the word, right?
Right.
So the reason it's saying it has two R's and not three is it's because of the information that it learned from, and the higher rate of people asking about words that only had the one zone. If you know to ask it a little differently, like, when spelling the full word strawberry, how many R's would it be? Or ask it to spell strawberry, it will probably do it just fine. So the hallucination, or the incorrect thing, is our misunderstanding of how it's answering the question, or our lack of specificity in the question itself. That's a lot to say around that idea, but what I'm trying to get at is, fixing hallucination is now us, like, if we were to think, there's probably jokes that kids tell, like, ha ha ha, no, strawberry actually has three, it's a little bit of a logic problem. So adding the logic is what fixes the hallucination.
Right. And so for those
that way around,
that's right. I'm going to show this right. There we go. This all comes from is a fascinating overlap. We'll probably talk about this next week, although everything will change between now and then too. And we're over time anyways, but it's pretty fun. Wait, where'd you go? You should be in here. Hold on. Oh, I picked the wrong guest one. Sorry, that's my bad. There you go. Hold on. This guy. There we go. There you are.
There we go.
So this is where this why AI can't spell strawberry. The same reason that Dr. Jellyfinger in Fletch can't spell Babar. Arnold Babar. Isn't there a children's book about an elephant named Babar? I don't know. I don't have any. No children? No elephant books. Is that 1B or 2? 1. B-A-B-A-R. That's 2. Yeah, but not right next to each other. I thought that's what you meant. Right? That's the scene. That's the little weird exchange they go through. It's not that odd. Humans do this a bunch as well. There's three R's in strawberry. There's 2 in the berry part of it. All English versions of berry have 2 R's in it, except for bury, as in put something in the ground. It's a different thing entirely. It won't take them long to figure that out. Let me tell you something. OpenAI's next gen of their AI is called Wait for it.
Strawberry.
Strawberry. Right. They're making a point. And I would argue that they chose it specifically because they solved this particular problem.
Exactly. And that's adding logic, adding like a logic stream to it, as opposed to just a stream of consciousness, which is what current Gen AI, and not current, like GPT-3 versus 4 versus 4.0.
Right.
Or whatever the thing is. So as it evolves, it's going to get a little bit better at figuring out the answer to these questions, right? And that's just a matter of time. Like, we shouldn't expect it to be uber human. Like, it's just not that.
Right.
So stop calling it human. That's our main
message. The other thing too is, like, even when they call it artificial, like, artificial is the wrong word, and intelligence is the wrong word. It's almost like it's synthetic comprehension. It can synthetically comprehend things. It can mix things together and recognize them for what they are in increasingly dense scales, right? It can see a picture of a dog and say it's a dog. That's comprehension. That's not intelligence. Intelligence is, what's the dog for, and what's my relationship to the dog on a bunch of different levels? Is it a threat? Is it a good dog? Is it a bad dog? Can I make it a good dog? Is it stuck being a bad dog? Is it a wolf actually, and therefore, or am I Lone Wolf McQuaid and I have a pet wolf and that's okay? So it's a bad dog to other people, but a good dog to me. That's what we're talking about when we talk about intelligence. Comprehension is that thing. That thing does that thing, and sometimes that thing does this thing, and this thing, and I can do that thing and that thing, but I can't do that. That's comprehension. It's not intelligence. That's just the ability. That's just sensors agreeing with the sense that it gets. Right?
Yeah.
I hope that made sense with my whole breakdown of it. But anyways, we're over time. Thank you so much, brother, for joining me again. I love this conversation, and I hope people get something out of it. And I got news for them. They're getting something out of it, even if they don't know yet. We're that far ahead.
Yeah, like the comments seem to be pretty engaged.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
so we're going to keep doing it.
Yep. And this will also, I honestly, I think it's what's going to happen more than likely is eventually the public's going to catch up with you and I. Right? Yes. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to watch over the next 6 to 8 months as we're doing the show and we're doing this thing, and as the Harris administration comes in and a piece of AI legislation gets passed and all that kind of stuff happens, and then there's this force accelerator when the chips that NVIDIA and AMD are making finally become readily available across a broader spectrum of places, or they set a system in place where they're creating such a volume that even the cheap chips are near quantum compared to what we're using now, and then poof. Right? Everybody's like, oh, that. I use it for that. Oh, that's in my life. Oh, that's a thing. Oh, yeah, at work we have this thing. Or, yeah, we got a robot last week. Or, all of our stuff is now automated by Stan in our thing. So everybody talks to Stan in their cubicle now, and it's hilarious. And other people are like, they only want to type the name or they want to rename it. So we're having these meetings at work about, can I rename Stan because my brother's name is Stan and I can't stand him, right? That's going to happen. It's like I'm telling you, and as we get closer to that, I think we're going to see that reflected in the audience that's around us. So,
yeah, for sure.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Hal. Have a good evening tonight. Are you going to do a show this afternoon?
I am. I'm going to do a regular afternoon show, and then because the Flappers show is at 10 o'clock at night. So instead of, if it was at 8, that means I have to be there at 7, which means it's kind of a squeeze between 3 and 5, the normal show time. So I have room to do a show as long as I don't exhaust myself. But I think I'll be fine. It's almost like I'm clearing the decks for what I have to deal with, But
I hear you.
So I will do a regular show this afternoon. Flappers show tonight for all our Patreon folks or whatever. Radio tomorrow. Afternoon show tomorrow after radio because I'm still in LA tomorrow, and then I go back really late tomorrow night. So I'm going to do an afternoon show of one of the Project 2025 videos after radio. So
cool.
Yeah, because I want to chip away at those and make sure that they're online so everybody can look at them for reference or pull clips when I'm talking about stuff and whatever over the next little bit. So, and we're gonna have I'm gonna create a playlist that's just those videos too on my channel, so people can go to
that'd
them
be
in
cool.
case. So, anyways, thank you so much, brother, and I
Thank
will.
you,
I'll
Hal. Thank
see
you,
you again
chat.
soon. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we'll
Rob
see
Glenn,
y'all
everybody.
next
Root
week.
Design in Chicago, and I'm still jealous about his 3D printer. Okay, there I said it.
Well, you can use it anytime you want.
We have to talk about the house design thing because I have ideas.
Yeah, well, it's ready to go. We can add to it and hit print again.
All right, I'm excited. Okay, talk to you later. See you
Bye,
later.
everybody.
Okay, there he goes. Ladies and gentlemen. And why is this the wrong camera? Hold on. Gotta move this in here. Move this to there. I still hear you moving around the background. Yeah. So this is what I get stuck doing. There you go. Bleed the corners a little bit. That's good. And I'm not doing stand up yet, so I don't want to put. There you go. Bink. There we go. So thank you guys so much for joining today. I know of all the shows, this is probably the driest topic for some folks, and it's not directly the politics stuff that we deal with, but it will be the single biggest issue for citizens of this country and people of the world over the next 5 years, especially until the integration is nearly complete and people are just, I guess, automatically, children are being born into the AI age now. Mr. WW says, biggest issue. I agree, which is why I do this. Same thing I felt about the Ukraine war. That important, needs to be covered, we need to address people's fears about it. We need to show people how fast it's moving. We need to keep you guys up to date about it. And we also got to take some of the bullshit out of it so that people don't think it's this big, super powered, thing, because the amount of ignorant shit I hear about AI specifically from everybody from Impact Theory, that show, Tommy, what's his name? Bilyeu, is that his name? And all the way to Glenn Beck and these fucking, the Flashpoint assholes, is just, it's noise. And what it's gonna do, it's not gonna stop anybody who's rich and powerful from using AI to make themselves more rich, make themselves more powerful and richer. It's not gonna slow anybody down who really cares about this. All it's gonna do is scare the average person away from integrating the parts that can make their life better into their lives because they're afraid of it. And that's how they get a head start. That's how they can scare you into, I'm not getting one of those things. And they've already got 10 of them because they know it's not a problem, right? And so people get left further and further and further behind. This is the issue I have with UBI. We've talked about this before, that if you make universal basic income, meaning rich people and poor people alike get the same $1,000 a month, all that does is make rich people get ahead that much quicker because they don't need that $1,000. It's not crucial to them, and they can invest it and turn their money into a lot more money. It just automatically gives them another rung on the ladder ahead of them. Whereas other people, it might zero out what you have, but it doesn't fix a lot of the problems either, right? And it's certainly not equal in that regard. And so the same thing is sort of true of robotics and AI specifically in people's lives and workload, is that there are a bunch of people who are already ahead, who are incorporating it as fast as they fucking can into everything, even mistakes and all. It will still give them a head start. And they are at the same time trying to scare everybody else out of doing it because they know it's a head start. I wouldn't touch that stuff. Meanwhile, they're using it every single day, especially in social media. Jesus Christ. Oh, real quick, before I go, here, I'll show you one example, which I feel bad when I don't do it without Rob, but here you go. This is this is called Postwise. This is a Twitter bot. Your personal AI ghostwriter trained on engaging viral content. Try it with X. Try it with LinkedIn. Hundreds of thousands of impressions. Stop wasting time. Go viral. Write content that's been engineered for engagement. You think you're actually interacting with a bunch of right-wingers on Twitter right now? You think shit, any, much less all of the Elon Musk bros on X are actually real fucking people? Seriously. Trying to thrive on $1,000 a month is next one possible. Cosmic Rose, the point of UBI is that poor people would get that $1,000 on top of whatever else they're getting at work or any of that other. Like you wouldn't be expected that. It would just basically be this boost. But all it does is help you to buy international goods because it doesn't change. The cost of labor goes up along with it. There's a lot of extrapolated reasons why Andrew Yang is a fucking moron. But the point I'm trying to make is in this one is that a good portion of the people that are especially that show up on a topic and start just blathering shit. This is what that is. This is just a ton of like AI generated bot content. Hi Anita, welcome. So just think about this every time you're interacting with somebody because they're going to do everything they can to sort of take advantage of. Where's the? Okay, I got it. There you go. Every time you're interacting with somebody, increasingly, it's going to be this shit. Just letting you know. So again, it's fine. Some people will use it because they need it. They're not great writers and they can't get the point across, so they use this kind of stuff as a leg up. That's totally fine. It's like people in a wheelchair using a ramp. No different. It's a tool. That's fine. But a lot of it will be used simply to just kind of create the illusion of support for an idea when it doesn't exist. And so what probably would benefit you knowing this is take one emotional step back always from the engagement you see online and be a little bit more stoic in your dealing with it. Because if something's real, react as though it's real. But don't assume that it is real because increasingly it will not be. Hope that explains stuff. You guys are wonderful. I will see you this afternoon for the regular Hal Sparks Megaworldwide show. It's very exciting. I have to do the whole. I haven't seen the whole thing, which is why I have to do it. The whole JD Vance CNN interview. Mwah. Not just because all the things on Twitter are saying Vance's CNN interview sparks outrage. Sparks. Anyways, okay, excellent. And by the way, patreon.com/HalSparks. If you want to see a free comedy show tonight, become a Patreon at any of the paid levels and every month. I do a comedy show. There you go. And you get, if you're in town when I'm doing stand-up by myself, because I don't take money from other performers, but if I'm doing stand-up in your town and you're a Patreon, you and a guest can come to my show for free at any of my live stand-up shows. So there you go. That said, I will see you guys later this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and take care of yourselves.
They sacrifice every day for the furniture, future.
I think I'm much more humble than you would understand.
I know words, I have the best words. The diversity lottery. De-engineering. They do action replays in magnified fortune. Combat infantrymen, very large a brain. Our army manned the air, it ran the ramparts, it took over the airports. They throw lots of hard objects and rarely does anything happen. Yesterday is a hard word for me.
something's wrong.
You using the whole fist, Doc?
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
Free health care for illegal.